4 is always better than 3. We got our foursome today. Sometimes the fourth wheel, but not always the fourth wheel. Tony's joining us.
Fourth wheels.
Just like having 4 wins right now would be better than having 3 wins, but still, that's all right. It's all right. I'm not going to get mad about that anymore.
But one of those wins came 2 weeks ago in Charlottesville, and we haven't talked about it yet because I went to London almost immediately afterward, and Jeff was flying, and so we didn't have a show last week. So we didn't really talk about it, but it was a pretty amazing weekend down in Charlottesville. We had a great time at our live show with Jay Zutant at the Lightwell Survey Winery. And then, of course, the game was great, and Charlottesville's a great town and all that stuff. So it was very good. Pretty much nothing bad happened, right? Everything was...
I got to admit, Charlottesville, I tend to go down there a lot. I have a friend who lives down there and went to school there. But I haven't been on the corner in probably 20 years, right? And the one thing that all of us, we couldn't believe how much live music was going on. Like, it was a scene. It was fun. And
good college town.
It was.
Great.
Yeah, and it was very different. I mean, I guess the last time I went there was at least 10, 12 years ago. And I mean, there were a couple nice bars and, whatever, but like this was like a whole kind of thing, and, live music all the time. And I will say, without trying to sound too creepy as a 44-year-old married man,
I was waiting for someone.
Let's be honest. You would not have mistaken yourself, if you thought that you were in, Oxford, Mississippi, or some other SEC town with a little bit better of a little bit better scenery than maybe you would have expected from the old nerd crowd at UVA or Duke or some of those other universities in question. That was a bit surprising, I will say.
I'm just going to allow you to just keep burying yourself, Paul. I'm not commenting.
No, that's it. I was making one statement, and now I'm done. Thank you. Good night.
We were talking before we got on, though, and I had posted something in the thread. Paul and I, after the game, were out waiting for for Jeff and Larry and Steve. Steve kind of hung out with us for a bit. We were waiting, and Paul and I broke up a fight between 4?
No, that was post game. That was post game.
That was post game.
It was just the two of us. Yep.
Four very small guys, one UVA guy and 3 Maryland guys, and Paul and I trying to break this fight up from these really young guys, total drunk, stupid, no reason to be fighting, and then Paul had to save them from the bouncer. That was fun.
It's just incredibly stupid. It's like, I don't know, 1 a.m. by that point. Jeff's back writing. I think Larry crashed, and like, you can't see under Tony's sweatshirt, but my man's pretty jacked up, and I'm 6'2", 220, so I'm not small. We walk in there and we see these like 4 guys facing off, and I grab those 2 Terp guys and just like, yo, come with me. And then just like, hey man, look, you're in their home, dude. Like, it doesn't. He's like, oh, they started. I'm like, it doesn't matter that they started. That dude is gonna kick you out.
So the question,
you're the one wearing the red, man.
Had it been 20 years ago, what would we have done?
Oh, you would have watched it.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
20 years ago, I would have watched it and laughed. 25 years ago, I probably would have jumped in there. That's the difference between still being in college and being post college. Does a lot of work there, I think. But we did try and save him, and literally like 5 seconds after I gave him my little old man wisdom, that bouncer came over, was like, yeah, I don't give a shit. I'm throwing you guys out. And we're like, all right, well, we did what we could. Let's move over to the next place.
We tried. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, we did our best. And that was cool though, because we ran into a couple guys at whatever that bar was next door, where one guy had played AAU Virginia Elite. And then a couple other guys who went to like high school in Bethesda or whatever. So we chatted them up and gave them a little stuff for going to UVA, but it was a good time.
Wheels and
importantly, they escaped with the victory. Most importantly, because a loss there, and I mean, it's a little bit of hyperbole, but basically season over. I feel like if you don't pull off that win.
it's certainly, season with any ambitions other than just
Right.
scrape into 6 certainly would have been over. And, by the end of that first half, you felt a little bit better about that last drive they had, but then giving up that touchdown to UVA right before the half was just absolutely killer. Especially when at any point, if Calandry gets called or gets tackled on that ridiculously stupid run of his with no time left, the clock just runs out and they don't score any points. So it was there was some squeaky bum time going on there, but in Scott Stadium for sure. But they really poured it on and took care of business in the second half. And you know what really felt good to me about it? And we talked about this a little bit after game. Like it felt like Maryland was like a real Big Ten team this time, in the way that in the second half you could see, especially on the defensive line, but the offensive line to some degree as well, they really just started pounding UVA into submission.
Yep.
And it felt so good because it feels like other teams have done that to us so many times over the years that, like, when we've been hyping this team up, especially about how they've been bigger, stronger, faster than they used to be, and start to finally look like a Big Ten. It felt like the second half there, they really started to play like a Big Ten team. And that was it was really beautiful to see.
Especially on defense. And like Tommy A, last 2 games.
Say it.
Sote.
Okay, yeah, it was good.
He has played 2 really good games back to back, and now something when we could see it in the stands, chasing people down. He was downfield, trailing plays and making tackles. He did the same, against Villanova, but that was the difference. You're right, Paul. And Friday night, shout out again to Jay for hosting everyone. That was fun. On the radio show, you guys were a little squeamish about the Terps. I never in doubt. I never thought it'd be in doubt.
I mean, after Michigan State, how could you not be squeamish, right? But defense, I think first half UVA, I don't know why. First half they had 260 yards. Second half, I think they had 88 yards. Didn't score any points. The defense gave up 20 against Villanova, but they're cycling guys in and out. So I think you can, despite that hiccup against Michigan State, you can start to feel a little bit good about the defense again. But there's no better way of finding out than going on the road to play somebody who's averaging like 480 points a game, roughly, like Indiana is right now. I think they're actually at 50.5 points per game, allowing 9.3 a game. I mean, they've played absolutely nobody, but still impressive. So that's going to be interesting. We'll find out what the defense really is.
If we go around the room right now, thoughts on Indiana, on them as a team.
Again, I haven't watched a ton, obviously, because I'm not sure if any of those games were even on TV given the opponents. But they smell a little bit like UVA, like you were saying before that game, Tony. Like they played nobody and they've looked great, but they've literally played nobody. So it'll be interesting to see if, that's the type of team that kind of resembles maybe some of those Maryland teams from not so long ago, or we would blow through, the Little Sisters of the Poor through most of September and hit that first conference game and get smacked around. That's my first thought. I don't really know what to think about Maryland yet, just because, it feels like they've also haven't had a really crazy hard schedule themselves, and they haven't looked like world beaters. So I don't know. It's going to be a weird one. I feel like we will actually find out something about both of those teams this weekend.
And then MSU taking that loss last weekend to removes a little bit of the maybe Michigan State is way better than we thought kind of thing.
They were missing their 2 top receivers, though. The guy that just torched Maryland, he didn't play, the freshman. So
yeah, and it's a game they should have won. I mean,
yeah.
they just completely blew it in the way that, that feels just karmic to me. Like they stole one against us they shouldn't have, and they gave that one away, and they shouldn't have done that either. So I don't think Michigan State's going like 10-2, but they look like a bowl team, I think. So they're not as bad as maybe we thought.
I saw a list the other day. I don't remember if it was ESPN or PFF. They ranked the top 10 quarterback NFL prospects regardless of class, and they had Childs from MSU at like number 7 or 8. Including all the seniors and everybody else playing college football. But on Indiana, I think there's a good chance they're just beating up on a soft schedule, but I don't think the quarterback is necessarily a fluke. I mean, the guy was, MAC Player of the Year 2 years ago, so he's got the pedigree. But this again, it feels. I'm not going to say season over. It's not wouldn't be quite as crippling as if you lost to UVA, but this really feels like another one you absolutely have to win if you're going to maximize the season.
Thing about Indiana that's kind of interesting is they have literally their schedule has been 119th out of 130 or something like that. And yes, ours is not massively better. I think we're in the like mid 100, like 105, 106. But that game at UVA, I think, is going to be really helpful in terms of it was loud. Like that stadium, Scott Stadium got loud, and even though there were about 40,000 people, the way that stadium is, it was loud, and their students.
But they left early, which is the weird part for me. In the third quarter was a 1-point game, and they started leaving, and I'm going.
I think that's every college now. The kids just.
Well, the kids did. I understand the kids want to go party, but the regular fans.
Oh, okay.
Too, they were just leaving, and then Maryland got it to like whatever 7 or point lead, whatever it was, and they started flooding out, and I was like, what is going on? The game is still it's 1 possession game.
Yeah,
definitely.
With the students, it's that they're everywhere. Obviously, is an issue. It's amazing,
right?
Yeah, it's amazing they even get them to come out for half a game. These kids raised on phones and social media with their attention spans. It's not,
It was weird, man, because they were like regular fans just rolling out. The second Maryland showed any signs of life in the second half, like they were gone, and I was like, "Damn, we don't even do that at our home games." Like,
they don't care about football at all. They just don't care,
including the guy behind us who kept making fun of Maryland as a Big Ten team. Oh, Big Ten! Oh, no. Big Ten!
He was yelling crab cakes. He was yelling crab cakes every time Maryland did something not well. He would yell crab cakes. I mean, it was so annoying. And then he vanished.
But then he left. Right? He was one of them.
But getting back to IU.
Yeah,
we all thought that the UVA game was going to be a shootout, and that never materialized. I don't think Indiana's defense has faced. I mean, they've played a really, really weak schedule. FIU just lost to Monmouth, so one of their wins just lost to an FCS team. I think IU's offense is definitely potent, but who knows what their defense is at all?
Well, their fans think they're like. You see what their fans are saying on their board? They think they're like going to the playoff or something, and Cignetti's like God. Like,
well, I mean, we would.
Well, they also thought they were getting Derek Queen.
That.
You're right. There would be a portion of the fan base doing that. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, they're called fans for a reason, right? Like they're not used to dealing with reality, and maybe they are great. I don't know. We've seen weirder things. It's college football, so I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. I certainly feel like Indiana should be favored. I think they're up by about a touchdown right now, which probably sounds about right, but.
It feels a little high.
Seems a little high. I thought maybe 4.
I don't know, man.
I thought 4.5 would be kind of reasonable.
It feels like I'm curious. It feels like a thing where like maybe the numbers are stretching that a little bit.
Yep.
And maybe the numbers tell you 4, and they think just the public perception of a Maryland team that's already lost to Michigan State and didn't set the world on fire against UVA. Or maybe that just bumps it up to 7. I don't know, because they're always, they've got their numbers and they play off the public perception. And certainly the public perception is going to see Indiana, averaging 600 yards and 3 million points a game as a team that should probably be favored, especially at home.
Their numbers are insane. I mean, obviously, again, they're played nobody, but the numbers are ridiculous. They're like 50-9 average score, second best in the Big Ten in pretty much every big defensive category, but just no way to know. To a lesser extent, like there's no way to know with Maryland. Neither team has played anybody even close to a ranked opponent so far, or even galaxy of a ranked opponent. So
right, like what was it? Maybe Leah's junior year, was that the year we came off and just were setting the world on fire offensively before we kind of did our usual October Big Ten.
Well, that was the Iowa game, right?
They scored 70 and then blew out Syracuse.
Yep.
Yeah, kicked the shit out of Syracuse and a couple other teams that people thought would be pretty good and didn't end up being very good. You worry that if I was an Indiana fan, I would worry about that type of thing. I don't know that Maryland's going to be the team that's going to bring them back down to earth, but I find it incredibly hard to believe, as Tony mentioned earlier, they're relying on all these transfers from JMU and these other places. Like, you can't quite just plug and play a football team, like an entire football program, and expect it all to work right away like that. It usually doesn't work like that. It's not
Sometimes
basketball, but I don't know. We'll see.
We talked about Florida State, how last year that did work for them. This year it's not. Like, I think it's just going to be that way in football and basketball and every sport with the new transfer rules. The big preseason polls and all the preseason prognostications are all going to be wildly off. We're just going to have to wait and see, because there's so much transferring. You don't know until you see everybody play. Like,
Jeff, I got a question. For you, Jeff, and kind of reading around about IU's defense. They're going to bring pressure, but they're smaller. They like to bring people from all over the field, but they're not a huge, stout, massive defense. My question to you is, any insights on Maryland's offensive line? Do you pick up any and I know our guest later can also speak to that, but what's your sense of Maryland's offensive line in terms of being able to kind of not just protect Billy, who hasn't really been running, I think, which is a little bit surprising. We all thought Billy'd be running more read option, really hasn't been. And I know at the UVA game, Larry, Paul, and I were like, run a quarterback draw. I mean, we were like, it's there. But in terms of being able to run the ball, what's your sense of the offensive line and those things?
Yeah, well, first, the one time to run that QB draw would have been the 4th and 1 against MSU, and then you probably win that game. But yeah, I mean, I think offensive line's been so. It's a little hard to tell, because I feel like Billy Edwards gets the ball out really quick, so that's part of the reason why he hasn't been sacked much or had to take off a lot. He's extremely decisive, and that's why Loxley liked him. Makes quick, smart decisions, doesn't force it, doesn't make mistakes. Clearly in run blocking, the line hasn't been very good. I think they averaged 5.1 against Villanova, which is okay, but against an FCS team like that, you should really be able to steamroll them physically and just Big Ten them to death, basically. So, other than little spurts, I don't feel like the run blocking's been very good. Locks talks a lot about how disciplined Indiana is, and they're not going to allow as many big plays. Maryland's relying so heavily on those big plays, and Ty Felton with yards after the catch, because as you know, when you can't run the ball consistently, you got to get big chunks consistently. So he talked about how this week they have to be able to do that. So I would look for them to come out and try to establish the run game early and see if maybe they can get it going, take advantage of a little bit of a size advantage. They haven't proven that they're able to do that yet, but I think it's a good strategy to at least try it out at first, especially against a team whose offense has been so good. So long story short, it's hard to give a final grade to the offensive line and say this is who they are. They're not really that great this year, but at the same time, it's 5 new guys all coming together on a unit at the same time, so you'd hope that they would grow and improve together. Should have Andre Roy back this week after smartly letting him sit out last week, so that should help. But the offensive line is definitely not a proven commodity at this point of the season. Not to say it's been terrible. It hasn't, but also the running thing is a big issue.
Yeah, they've certainly been using the pass to set up the run a little bit and kind of getting Billy to use these short passes to get the ball into space kind of as a pseudo running game. And that's worked to some degree. And it does feel like, I think compared to the last few years, we are relying a little bit less on chunk plays. Like, they've had a number of drives that feel like they're those 8-10 play drives that kind of take their time getting down the field, not just like Leah, doing a thing, or Demas doing a thing, or Jarrett doing a thing. It feels a little more methodical this time. But again, it's still so early and they still haven't really played anybody. So it's hard to know whether you can sustain that against a team that can really stand up the run. And I just don't know whether that's what we're going to see this weekend or not. I just don't know.
Yeah, Roman Hemby through 4 games has 50 carries for 201 yards, I think. 4 yards a carry. You obviously would have hoped for more than that if you're looking for a bounce back year. Nolan Ray averages more. I think it feels like he's starting to take some of those carries as we kind of expected. He just so much more dynamic, bouncing outside so fast, and also he's really powerful. We talked about his speed, but he runs.
He falls forward, man.
Yeah.
For a smaller guy, he runs really low, and I swear every time he ends up squeezing an extra yard out somewhere. Like,
yeah,
it's weird. Every once in a while, you run into these smaller guys who, like, you're like, hey, I want that guy to be our power back. Like, he's not 250 pounds, but he just finds a way to get in the hole and just fall forward for that extra yard.
Yeah,
That's crucial.
He's one of those low-cut, thick guys, exceptional balance, too, if you watch him, like on that one long run he had early. I guess
that cut.
Against UConn.
Yeah, it was incredible.
The 2 cuts and then keeping his balance there was impressive. But long story short, 4 yards of carry for your top guy is not going to get it done, especially, again, when you're not even playing the tough Big Ten teams. So they got to figure that out.
One of the things I noticed coming out first drive against Villanova, they actually had Hemby and Ray together, so they're starting to, looks like they've got some packages where they're keeping them both in. They're putting one in a slot. They're bringing them in tight. So I wonder what maybe kind of tricks and misdirections we might start seeing if you get both of those guys. Hemby's so great in the pass game, but it looks like they were trusting Ray a little bit too. He's getting out in the slot a bit. Wonder if we're going to start seeing more of the screen game if you get both of those guys in, but they're going to have to start doing something schematically, I think, to try to get at least Ray on the edge, try and do something, maybe get Billy on the edge too, maybe more read option. Again, that, at the UVA game, we were all waiting for more Billy pulling the ball. He missed a couple reads, I think, but I think we were all a bit surprised we didn't see him pulling the ball more and running.
And Indiana will be obviously focused on Ty Felton with the absurd numbers he's putting up. Guy's got 17 more catches and like 250 more yards than anybody else in the Big Ten, which is amazing. But I think Dylan Wade is a wild card. Locks mentioned him yesterday. He's got 9 catches and he's averaging 19 yards a catch. The guy all he does is make big plays at tight end. So him, and he talked about Octavian Smith, who's been a little more of a factor recently. They got to get those secondary contributors to contribute more, obviously, because you can't just rely on throwing it to Felton 20 times a game all year.
Yeah, you've got issues with Wade because he won't block, and that's going to really limit his ability. The one thing that kind of unlocked Dyches was his ability to block, so it wasn't just like, oh, that kid's in, they're going to pass. That's the only thing that worries me about Wade right now. And when it comes to the other guys, I mean, they've got to get Smith or Knotts or Manning or literally McLaurin, whoever else is in the locker room, somebody's got to get out there and make some plays that's not named Felton or Prather, because like that's going to get figured out quick. Like all these coaches do is watch film, and right now nobody else is really contributing. And Felton is great, and I think he's going to play himself into the second or third round and be a good NFL player, but he's not going to be able to keep this up. There's one of
the things, it's Felton short, Felton intermediate. Felton's getting him down the field, and then they're hitting Prather on 30-yard, fades or corner routes. They're doing a great job of getting Prather, in space one-on-one, where he's just so big and he's gonna make catches. But they're getting him really, really good coverage schemes to run against. But that's what it looks like. It's a lot of Felton short and intermediate, and then when they want to go for the home run ball. So I think you're right, Paul. I mean, if I can sit and notice that, just imagine what like a real football person notices about these things.
Right. And it looks like, and Felton's been like the zone buster. That's been the thing. If you watch a lot of those catches, he's just finding space and just sitting down, and he just knows what to do. Like, he's just a really smart receiver. And Prather, he doesn't do well against zone, but you get him one-on-one on the outside, he's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, could you guys recall any Maryland football player having a better first 4 games? I know that's kind of a esoteric.
I mean, I'm going to go old school on you, Jeff. I mean, when Duffner came in and installed the run and shoot, Jermaine Lewis seemed to have these kinds of look. No one's had the first 4 games that Felton's had, so he's made history, Maryland football history, his first 4 games. But Jermaine Lewis, that's the last time I remember a receiver, at least, just making every play all over the field. Other teams having to really account for him. So I mean, that's going back to the early-ish 90s, right?
We're going to say
Yeah,
Larry?
and
The guest that Wheels alluded to is Isaac Bunyun, former defensive line for the Terps. He's going to be coming up in 5 minutes. Before he comes, let's give our predictions for Indiana. Michael Wheatley in the chat said Terps 31, Indiana 24. What do you guys think? We'll just go around the horn. Jeff?
I'm going to say, I think it could be a little lower scoring than expected. I'll go Maryland 28-24.
Wheels?
48-45 Terps.
Paul?
oh man, I don't know. I feel like Maryland just always plays Indiana well, and even on the road. So I say 35-27 Terps.
I had I think the same thing. I think they have a really great shot to win.
Maryland here's a factoid from you from the Maryland's pregame information is Maryland has scored at least 38 points in the last 3 meetings against Indiana. The first time they've done that against anybody since Duke in the early 80s. So that pretty much means it's a lock to win.
Hopefully they're going to do that again. Before he gets here, Jeff, can you do basketball recruiting real quick? I know you have some updates for that.
Yeah, I actually have something on the site right now with a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff on where Kevin Willard is and who he has the best shot with, who might commit soon, and things like that. But, right now, obviously, they have one commit, Marcus Jackson, top 70 big man from Baltimore. That happened weeks ago. Everybody pretty much knows about that. At this point, they're trying to reel in Chris Jeffrey, point guard from Mount Zion Academy. Same school that Malachi Palmer came from. I think they're looking pretty strong there. And then Cam Ward from Largo High School. I think we have him number 57 at 24/7 Sports in the senior class. He's one to watch closely. He did his official visit last weekend. We've done some reporting on him on the site. And then Jordan Scott, another top 50 kid from South Lakes High School in Reston, home of Grant Hill, for those of us who are old. They're chasing him really hard. They really want him. Other two are Michigan State and Virginia Tech. All three of those recruitments should be wrapping up before too long.
But with the two guys, one is committed, one is about to commit. Those two might be it, though, right? And then the rest to transfers.
Yeah, I think the over-under on high school recruits they signed this year is 2.5 for sure. I think if they don't get Scott or Ward, it's fairly unlikely that they'll take another high school kid. There are some guys floating around still. Mike Cal Brown is the biggest name. He's a 5-star point guard, top 10 player nationally. They do have an in with him, but that's going to be obviously a tough one to pull off, as it is anytime Maryland is mentioned with the top 10 player. And then, there's a few more guys. Tyler Jackson still somewhat on the list. A couple other names floating around, but I do think, there's a real chance that they could just take 2 high school recruits and save the rest for the portal. I think Kevin Willard's philosophy on the portal has changed, and he's really emphasized that lately. And, I think he sees that the advantage to that is not only that you can see who's proven and who's not, but also you have a better idea what your roster is looking like. In this case, he should have an idea what Derek Queen's status is, so he'll know whether he needs, another big man or two, most likely by then. So, it's not going to be a big high school class.
Paul, are you still upset with that strategy?
No comment.
Come on, you're on a show. We're here to listen to you comment.
Well, look, I don't want to preview. I don't want to preview too much. I can't wait for the second half segment you guys are going to do. That's going to be a lot of fun for any people listening and watching.
The Larry's
guys going to get some good laughs coming up, I think.
Certainly hope so.
Second half's going to start in a minute. Our guest, Isaac Bunyun, just joined us. We're going to add him to the show. We're going to say bye to our buddy Wheels. Thank you for joining us for the first half, reliving Charlottesville, all that stuff. We have your non-res report coming up later. So,
great.
Thanks, guys. Have fun. Yes. Great seeing you all.
All right. See you, Wheels.
Thanks,
Tony.
Again. And now we are going to add to the show Mr. Isaac Bunyun. How you doing?
Doing good. How about you, man?
We're doing great. We're so happy to have you on the show. We've been doing a lot of research about you. Very interesting guy, but we'll get into all that. The team is 3-1 right now. Some really good stuff. Something that didn't go well in the Michigan State game. But what's the vibe for the team right now?
I mean, locked in, ready to go. So as a team, you're bonding, going together more and more as a unit. So the vibe right now is let's go get it.
Isaac, what kind of changes have you seen in the program during your time there? It seems like, just the culture and the expectations and everything have risen quite a bit in those few years.
I mean, more and more, as the guys that have been here, we grow, we bond more together. It becomes more like a brotherhood, and in that brotherhood, we kind of push ourselves to uphold the standard right here. So I'll say that's the biggest thing. The bonding, which allows for us to uphold the standards, that's one of the biggest changes that's come across my time being here.
Isaac, you've made the really tough transition from a defensive lineman to an offensive guard. What's that been like for you? What's been going through your head trying to get – can you bring that defensive line mentality to the offensive line along with just all the stuff that you're probably used to, seeing on film against you? Now you got to replicate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty interesting with the move, but then I say the physicality, that's the first thing I brought over because I wanted to be physical, and I think that was the easiest part of transitioning over. But then learning the technique, the footwork, it kind of transitioned from D-line as well. But then it's like you got to slow it much more down and then make sure you're on the right guy. But being on this side right now, the opposite side right now, I'll say I'm a huge asset to the offensive line right now because it's a whole new line. The guys never play together, so I kind of bring that element of a defensive mindset to the guys in the room to actually like watch film and understand film much better.
Talking about the offensive line, I wonder sometimes, sometimes from the outside, it's hard to ascertain who's doing well, who's not, because sometimes it looks a missed assignment might be someone else when it looks like it's the other person, right? How much of the offensive line, I always wonder this, is the individual skill all adding up, or is it more just about the cohesiveness of the unit?
I believe it's more about the cohesiveness because it's like playing together, how the other guy's going to react to something, so we all know how to pick each other up. And then just playing to the T and executing, that's a key thing as well, because knowing that my guy right here is going to do this, and I have to follow him up with this. So it's more about the cohesiveness of every single play, I'll say.
So you guys have kept Billy pretty clean. He's not getting hit a lot, not getting sacked. He helps you out, obviously, by getting rid of it pretty quickly. Running game hasn't really gotten to be rolling downhill yet. What needs to happen for you guys to start, being able to carve out a lot more yards on the ground?
I'll just say more and more, again, putting ourselves to the standard. Every single day we come in here, we watch film as a unit. We know where we struggle at, and we look to improve on that each and every single day. So we push ourselves in the extra film, knowing our footsteps are right, trying to make the right calls, and just building on that each and every single week. Because we take pride in running the ball, and we like to improve on that every single week that comes up. So, yeah.
So you guys have a pretty unique coaching situation on the offensive line. You got Coach Braswell, has been there for a few years. You got Coach W. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his last name and insult anybody. And then you got Brian Ferencz as an analyst, who was a great offensive line coach when he was doing there at Iowa. So how are those guys working with you? Or is it a lot more individual technique stuff, or are they kind of working as a team with everybody to kind of up the cohesion and whatnot?
I mean, it's a tremendous asset to have three really strong offensive-minded coaches. And then, moving to the offensive line right now, I was very grateful for that. I'm glad Coach Locks had this system set up this way because I needed all the help I could get. So knowing you could turn to left or right is the same answer and the same technique on how things could work is truly been a huge asset. And Coach Robo, we call him Coach Robo here, just to cut it short.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll use that going forward.
Yeah, Coach Robo, I love how his teaching style as well. I mean, he knows how my background and how I like to learn, so we kind of make jokes there and there, and it allows us to learn the offensive line much better. So it's a huge asset to all of us, but we usually meet all together, and sometimes we break up into little smaller groups just so that we all have more individual attentions and get more film time and more review and know what we're doing and how to do it.
Speaking with Isaac Bunyun, 6'3", 320-pound, former defensive lineman, current offensive lineman for the Maryland Terps. Isaac, you're born in Accra, Ghana, in Africa, and you moved to the United States. What was it like coming over here, acclimating to the new country, the new culture and everything, learning new sports that you'd never played before, et cetera, all of that kind of stuff?
I'll say one thing. I mean, coming over here initially, it wasn't a big surprise or a big change because you always watch on TV how the U.S. or America is. So then, coming from an African background, education was the first thing that came up to the head. So when we came here, education was the first thing on the list. You got to just go to school, do good in school. So I think transition over here, that was one of the huge things I took pride in. And I'll say my freshman, sophomore year of high school, I ran into my high school coach in the hallways. He was an AP computer science teacher. And he said, "Hey, why don't you play football?" And I was in that class too, so I'm like, you know what, why don't I try out? So then that's how I learned about football, but then everyone back home was against it. They're like, "Football? You mean soccer?" I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Sport. And then they were like, "You mean guys that just wear metal pads and just go hit someone else?" No. So I had to kind of explain to them, and then the fact of I used the education piece to kind of persuade them to allow me and to support me in playing football. And then as time went along, they saw the value in it, and I myself saw the value in it as well. I mean, I grew to love the sport of football, and I'll say one key thing was that me being in the U.S. And where I grew up in, you always support the hometown team. So luckily for me and my dad, when he relocated into the U.S., he lives in Baltimore, Maryland, which is about 10 minutes from campus. So from the first day we landed on that plane, we came to Maryland. I'm like, was the nearest high school here? Was the nearest college here? That's where I'm going. So I knew that I wanted to go to Maryland from the start, and then I wanted to support the area that's pouring into me, and why not support back into it?
Hey, Isaac, can you still get down on the soccer field? You got a decent free kick from 25 yards?
I started playing soccer a while back. I think I took one of my uncle's watches, and I tried to show off, and I messed the watch up on the soccer field, so I kind of feel scared going back on the field there. So. But I do play some FIFA from time to time here and there, so that's how I get back my soccer field.
All right, I think Sasha could use the help. So
They're doing better now. Hey, Isaac, with the new NIL and transfer rules, it seems increasingly rare that players come into a program and develop over the course of 4 or 5 years and work their way in it. You've done that. That's a rare thing now. People, they don't get playing time, they leave. Why did you ever have the thoughts about maybe transferring? Like, maybe this isn't for me. Why has it worked for you and for so many others it hasn't?
So one of the biggest things that comes in this game of college football, everyone always talks about leaving and going somewhere else when things don't go the way you want it to go. But then I say, looking at my life story, things haven't necessarily gone how I'd like for it to go. But then the thing is that one I say pillar word or so. One thing that my family pushes on is you start what you finish. So when I came to the University of Maryland here, and regardless of whatever happened, my goal was to start and finish here. So I came here as a walk-on. It's like, hey, things aren't going my way, but then again, I'm showing and improving every single day. So some of this progression and improving every single day, why would you leave where you're progressing and getting better at? And that also comes along with a huge trust factor. Coming here, Coach Logs, Coach Brian Williams, that's still my guy to this day. That was a huge trust factor right there. And the fact that as you're here every single day, you see the team grow. I mean, no one on this team right here looks at everyone like, hey, you're different from me, you're so-and-so. We all see each of us as brothers. And then that element, I would say, in my opinion, knocks out the whole talk of the NIL or transferring or wanting to leave, because guys are bought in. Guys see us. We see ourselves as brothers. We see us as a family. So why would we want to abandon family? We want to see things through, and we want to actually make a name for ourselves and the name for the 2024 Maryland Terps, 2025 Maryland Terps right here.
Isaac, you said nothing surprised you when you came to the U.S. because you had been watching TV. So was there like a specific show that you watched that you thought everybody in America was like that? Like, what was your taste of that?
When I say TV, the main thing we usually watch, so my dad and mom were really big about being aware of current affairs. So every single morning, either CNN or MSNBC, some form of news channel was always on TV just to stay well aware of the things that were happening. So it wasn't necessarily like movie shows and like and TV and stuff like that, but there were some movies that I did like, but then it mostly was the news channels and just staying up to date. And I'll say that kind of probably played into how I ended up majoring in public policy, because I was still on current affairs and stuff like that. So why not venture into the field where my parents kind of prepared me and motivated me to kind of go into that.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like The Wire or The Walking Dead, and you got
Definitely not that.
This is a piece of cake, man. Oh, one more actually. Tell me what the transition is. Obviously, it's fairly unusual for guys to switch sides of the line. Was that something you had discussed like time to time with the coaching staff, or was it like one day you showed up and they're like, "Hey, man, we want to see what you can do on the offensive side"?
I'll say this transition has probably been coming from the first day I got here, because when I got here as a walk-on, as a walk-on, you want to prove yourself, or you want to fit in somewhere. So I believe the first year I was here, I was asking Coach Braswell, hey, how can I actually get in the rotation, man? Like, if you need me an offensive line, I'm willing to help, because back at high school, I played from left tackle all the way to right tackle and some long snapper in there. So I was willing to help out any way possible. But then I developed some defensive lineman, and then that transition over. Initially, I would have thought that this transition might have happened a little bit earlier, especially being my last year right now. I was like, whoa, would I want to make this transition right here? Then again, the main reason why I came here was the trust I had in Coach Locke, the trust I had in Coach Brian Williams, and the trust of being the Terps. So I'm like, I've been here for 4 years. I've trusted these guys. So I think they suggesting, they talking to me about the potential of being on the offensive line. I have to trust what has got me in so far. So the transition, I wouldn't say it was easy. The first few days in the offensive line room, I had no idea what was going on. I'm like, when the film was playing, I'm still watching the defensive side of it because my brain hasn't even switched yet. You line up on the field to make calls. I'm echoing the defensive calls in my head because that's what I'm used to. Got to echo the calls, but then it's like, no. I'm on the other side right now. So it took a while. First few weeks, I knew left and right, and as that goes on, okay, left and right, get this person, left and right, do this, and then it just built on. And being in a room with guys like Josh Collenberger, Andre Roy, the key guys that helped me on the left-hand side, but overall, Aluba and Alan Heron helped me be who I am. So, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, as an alum and a fan, there's literally nothing in the world better than watching when walk-ons get scholarships. And I love that teams do the whole video thing and the lead up to it. Now, what did that feel like for you that day when Locks called you out and a couple other guys saying, you know what, you're on Scully now?
Dude, it felt great. And then the funny thing about it was that I believe the morning of the day before that, I had a dream that I was standing somewhere and I got offered a scholarship. So I told my girlfriend this. I'm like, hold up, is this real? So she was the only one I told about this. So then we go out there that day at practice. It's a regular Thursday practice. You're going through the script. And I'm like, hold on, what's happening right now? And then Coach Locks mentions my name, Sean Greeley and David Brown, which are guys that are working on the defensive line, and we're all well-deserving guys. So it was a big shock for us. But then the one thing that stuck in my head was that we are all three hard-working guys, and then our hard work pays off. So it was a surreal moment. I literally was crying. I got back home. I told my dad. I called back home, and it's like everyone was proud of me, but then they weren't surprised because they know how much work I put into being where I am today. So it was like, hey, you got what you wanted to get right now, but that's not the end goal right there. Enjoy the moment. Keep working harder.
And I can tell you as a parent, man, that's a great day for your parents because, man, Maryland ain't cheap these days.
Yeah,
I'm already starting to get through that with some of my oldest kid now.
Maryland isn't cheap, and the training table has a lot more food than whatever.
It sure does.
Hey, Isaac, we finish every interview by playing fill in the blank. I'm going to ask you 5 rapid-fire questions. You say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Okay.
Here we go. The greatest athlete ever from Ghana is?
Michael Asian.
Nice.
Good call.
Yes, Paul and I know who that is. If the offensive line and defensive lines got into a rumble, the winners would be?
The offensive line.
Oh, okay.
What would have been your answer last year?
Defensive line for sure.
After your playing career is over, whenever that is, after the NFL or whatever, if it's this year, whenever, if you wanted to start a new career, it would be?
In nonprofit organization.
Okay. Well, your bio on the Terps said you wanted to be a pilot.
Yes,
So
that's still my end goal. I took my girlfriend got me a first class in piloting school. It was pretty cool. But then again, football is the main focus right now. But then aside from football, I plan on being a pilot as a hobby on the side because I don't think my big size is going to fit in that little cockpit. So
I was going to say you might need to talk to Boeing and Airbus about that, right?
Number 4, your nickname in high school was?
I did not have a nickname.
Really?
I did not have a nickname.
Okay, no nickname. All right, last one. If you entered a hot dog eating contest, the number of hot dogs you'd be able to eat is?
I think just 2. I'm not a big hot dog.
What?
Wow.
320 pounds, 60? I can eat more than 2.
Well,
I can't eat that many hot dogs. At some point, my body starts to just feel like, what is this? So, yeah.
Okay.
I respect the hell out of that. That's a man who takes care of himself.
I mean, yeah, that's the question everybody's body should ask when they're eating a hot dog. So that's
right.
All right.
You should
Okay,
ask your
fair
maker
enough.
before you eat that many hot dogs.
All right. Isaac, we asked one more thing if everybody comes on the show. Could you do us a favor and say, this is Isaac Bunyun, and you're listening to IMS Radio?
Got you. This is Isaac Bunyun, and you listen to ISM Radio.
Thank you, Isaac. It's been
Thanks,
great
Isaac.
having you. Good luck this week against Indiana.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thanks, Isaac.
Thank
All
you.
right.
ISM,
Isaac
that's a
Bunyun.
first.
ISM, that is new.
We've never gotten ISM before.
Hey, put it on the list, man. We've got a pretty broad outline of different being called different things.
Nothing.
That's one of the nicest things
Nothing will
you've
ever
been
match
called.
IRS radio, though.
IRS radio was awesome.
had
Was
two
that
of those.
Was that Jameer? Who did
Yeah.
that?
Mhm.
And also a lacrosse mom.
Look,
Well, that was
Mitchell
like
is
during
the-
a tailgate. You get a pass for that. I mean,
Yes.
once Larry gets tailgating, gets a couple in him, he's like asking the equipment manager's cousin to say
Yeah.
this is IMS radio.
Hey,
It's hilarious.
I think family members count. That's what I'm saying. Anybody who played any sport and their family members count. That's my
that's
rule.
fair.
All right. We did. Is there anything else to say about basketball recruiting before we get to Paul's favorite segment?
Not really. I think.
Oh,
it's, you know,
I should do that too. I forgot to put us back. Okay. All right. Here we go, Paul. You ready? We already had him once. We're going to have him
So
a
excited.
second time on the
Endless
show.
wheels.
Here we go.
Hey everyone, I'm back. This is Wheels with your Inside Maryland Sports non-rev sports report. We're going to start with men's soccer, who re-entered the top 25 after two big wins over Big Ten teams last week. The first was over number 8 Wisconsin. The second was at a rain-delayed game against Indiana, where they won 1-0 after the game was suspended and had to be continued the next day. The women, unfortunately, have been struggling. They're on a 3-game losing streak in the Big Ten. They look to snap that on Thursday against Northwestern. Volleyball is riding a big 8-game win streak as they head into Big Ten play. Northwestern and Iowa
by an
visit
8-game
College
losing
Park
streak.
over the
Yes.
next 4 days. So the
The Big Ten
Terps
is
hope
no
to open
joke in
2-0 in Big Ten play. Finally, let's end with number 5 field hockey. After dropping 2 games to ACC teams last week, including against number 5 Duke, the Terps rebounded with a huge win over number 13 Rutgers, and they host Northwestern, second ranked nationally, Northwestern, in a huge Big Ten and national game in College Park on Friday. And that's
Live
it
show?
for your non-rev sports report. Take care, everyone.
Live show.
live show.
Live
Number
show.
1 Northwestern.
Listen, live shows are fun, but it's a whole hell of a lot of work for me.
That's
I
fair.
start prepping that shit weeks before you guys do.
That's very fair.
All respect to Lawrence for doing the heavy lifting that UVA weekend for sure.
But I'm willing to do it. Okay.
Just not for field hockey.
I'm not doing that.
Oh,
I'm not doing that. Sorry.
well, the problem is that there wouldn't be people there. So
That is a problem.
Well, I mean, certainly not people who want to like listen to us. Like, but I mean, if they're like people, if they're there, they're field hockey fans, and we don't know anything about anything.
right.
I mean, who's like the number 1 field hockey player on Maryland's team right there? Like, I don't know. I'm sure she's like probably like one of the top players in the country because they're good. So
Jen Adams, or was that lacrosse?
that was lacrosse, and that was
That was
like when
lacrosse.
I was at Maryland.
I know it was like 20 years ago.
I remember her. She was from
She was
Australia,
huge.
and
That's
she was a
They
killer.
won didn't they win like 10 national titles?
7 in a row, I think.
7, something like that.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
disgusting. But yeah, man,
All
that volleyball stuff is just funny because like it's the ultimate. Like Maryland kicks everybody's ass outside of conference, and then they go into the Big Ten and they're playing like number 1, number 3, number 5, number 7, number 8, and number 13.
It's crazy to
man,
me
how do
because
do that?
you would think that would be a West Coast thing where all the teams are dominant at volleyball. It just feels more of a little more of a West Coast sport to me because they play it
indoor
outside.
It's indoor volleyball, man. That's
No, I know it is,
all
but
cold sports.
yeah, it's amazing. In Nebraska, remember, was that last year when they had 70,000 people come out for a volleyball match?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I can't even.
They don't have
Can't
anything
imagine.
else to do,
I
right?
can't imagine how little there is to do in Lincoln, Nebraska that worked out. But good for them. I mean, hell, I wish we had like an eighth of that fan support for just about anything.
Well, I mean, look, I would go. The energy and the excitement and the party
Yeah.
of that, I'd do that.
If it was
Volleyball's not
the
bad sport.
big thing, yeah. I mean, I think I went to one of those when I was in school still, we went to one of those Maryland Duke women's games that they really pumped up as like a big occasion. That was cool because like they made like a thing. And I'm sure that's what it was like for volleyball too. So that's cool. We're shitting on it, but it's a cool idea.
It is. All right. I am going to bring up a spreadsheet. I know you guys love my spreadsheets.
Don't worry, guys. It's about gambling this time. It's fun.
It's always fun when a spreadsheet's involved. Always fun. We're going to start a new segment, Larry's Locks versus Paul's Picks, or Paul's Picks versus Larry's Locks, however you want to call it. This stems from something that happened also over Charlottesville weekend. I did a 9-team parlay and won, but I only won like.
What did you win? Like $6?
They were all like money line minus 650.
10,000. Yeah. It was every game like Georgia versus Wofford. It was like every one of those, all 9, but they all came through. And I bet $10. $10? No, sorry. I bet
you had like whatever was left in your account. It was like $17.
Yeah, because I hadn't opened DraftKings in a couple of years, and I had $35, and I put it all on. I was like, if they all win, great. If they don't, then who cares? And they all won, so now I have $52. So there you go.
Boom.
But what we're gonna do every week, Paul and I are gonna make 5 picks against the spread, and then I'm going to
shit on them.
Jeff is going to shit on them. We're going to see who gets the most right.
But you can only officially shit on 1 pick per. And if that pick hits, whichever one of us made it gets 2 points for making that pick instead of 1. So that's how this is going to work.
Yeah.
Right? Get my pen and paper ready.
Yep. We each pick 5. We each pick 5. And then whichever one hits, we get 1 point for. Jeff is going to trash one of our 5 picks. And if that pick hits, we get 2.
Yeah.
I think the only other rule is we have to pick from the Maryland spread, right? And
we're both going to pick the Maryland game. That's one thing. So what we're going to do is I have a tab for each week, and we're going to pick those. And then this sheet automates it after the results. We're going to figure out how many points, how many correct, what our percentage is, all that kind of stuff. So we both have to do the Maryland game. It's Maryland +7 or Indiana -7. I am taking Maryland +7. So that's my pick for that game. You?
Yeah, give me the points. I mean,
both doing the same thing. That's not very exciting. But
the Maryland game, we're allowed to do that. The other ones we're going to do in a draft order. So once somebody picks a team from that game, the other one can't also pick that team.
Right.
You can pick from the same game, just not the same team.
Do you need to see the DraftKings lines?
I've got them up. I'm good.
All right. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Go ahead. You go first then.
All right. Give me Kirby and the Dogs in Tuscaloosa. Give him 2.
Georgia -2. I guess I should put +7 here too.
Yeah, just so we know.
Yeah.
That might be 10 or 4 on game day for all we know.
All right, so you took Georgia. Point. You took Georgia. We have to take the line at the moment we're making the picks.
Yeah.
We're not changing with it. I'm going to take Michigan -9.5 over Minnesota. Go ahead.
I don't hate that. That was on my list.
By the way, one of our rules is that we can't, besides Maryland, we can't pick the same team, but we can pick opposing teams in the same game.
Yep.
So
yeah, I like that one. I'm gonna pass on switching it though. Give me. They look like crap last week, but I still think they're pretty decent. So give me NC State giving 6.5 at home to Northern Illinois.
NC State -6.5 against Illinois. I had them, but I had them down around 10th for me in my list. The next one.
I knew you were going to prep hard for this.
No, I didn't. Next week, I spent a lot of time creating a spreadsheet.
Okay.
Next week, I'm going to prep harder. I'm taking New Mexico State plus
300
plus 9 over New Mexico in the the Battle of New Mexico, the great rivalry that is New Mexico State versus New Mexico. I'm taking New Mexico State.
Woof. All right.
Love it.
Let's see. Why don't you? You know what? Give me Illinois plus 18 against Penn State. Penn State looks really good, but oh boy, I don't know about that one.
I didn't even have them on my list, so you can have those. I am taking. I'm debating now. All right, I'm going to do it. I'm taking Mississippi State plus
And all those points.
38.5 against Texas. I think Texas is going to blow them out, but they're going to put in subs. And I know their second straight quarterback is probably the second best quarterback in the country, but I just think Mississippi State's going to keep it, obviously, if I'm picking them, within 38.5. So, okay, go ahead.
Don't hate that. I would like to go with, you know what? Give me Wisconsin and the points against USC. That's 15 in the hook.
Wisconsin plus 15.5.
Wisconsin doesn't usually get blown out like that.
Yeah. I don't think I had them. No, I didn't have them on my list. My last one, I'm taking another huge dog. I'm taking UCLA plus 26 over Oregon. Over Oregon.
Thought about that.
So
yeah, I don't. And Oregon's been weird, man. Like they feel like they should be better than they actually are.
Yeah.
All right, is this the last one?
No, we already did 5. We did 5.
Or is that it?
Maryland plus 4 more, right? Or are we doing?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Jeff, now you get to tell each of us what is our worst pick.
Yeah, I can't really eviscerate any of these picks, in part because I don't know anything about New Mexico State, New Mexico. For Larry, I'm gonna say you're wrong on Michigan minus 9.5. I feel like it's a perfect letdown spot after they just squeaked out that win against USC. A lot of times it's hard to get it going against when you play a lesser team after pulling off a draining, big emotional win like that. So I could see that being a really close game just for the letdown factor. For Paul, I'll probably have to go with the Wisconsin pick. I think that they're just not very good this year. They got killed, obviously, by Alabama. A lot of people get killed by Alabama, but I don't think Wisconsin's quite as good as usual. I also think that line seems a little fishy with USC coming off of its first loss. Like they shouldn't be favored by quite that much. Might be a little bit of a overlay, as they say. So that would be the two that I'm going to dispute. So you'll probably be right on both of those, but that would be it. Michigan and Wisconsin.
I'll just put in some dummy data so you guys can see how the spreadsheet works. But say Maryland wins, they lose. This is a push. You get a half point for a push. Illinois loses and Wisconsin wins, which means you get the Jeff bonus. So you got 3.5 points, and you got 2 picks correct. Let's say I get.
Larry is so proud of this spreadsheet right now.
I get 3 correct, and then you go over here. Boom. Uh-oh, I got a problem. Damn it. See, I did it too quick.
Yeah, you did it too quick.
Your side's working properly. You're 40% overall. Son of a bitch. See that formula? Look how good that is. Obviously not that good. Anyway.
I just like to know how NC State can push it minus 6.5. But
it said dummy data.
Scorigami.
Yeah.
I was tempted to call that one out, Paul, but I figured everybody and their mom is going to be like, "Oh, they beat Notre Dame. Let's take the 6.5." So
yeah,
that was kind of a contrarian thought.
That was my only thought, and I think NC State's fairly well coached, and they'll figure it out. I
had NC State on my list. Wisconsin had way down my list.
But you also have to factor in the stench of Debbie Yao that still exists there. That's worth negative 3 or 4 points for every game.
I'm not feeling good about the vibes of that pick for sure. Like it's not a thing that I'm happy about, but it just felt like a game that's going to going to play out. But we'll see. Usually if I'm just picking things that don't matter, I do pretty well. But I actually bet money on it, I fail miserably. So this will be a good exercise for that. Looking forward to it.
All right. Well, there we go. That's our first attempt. We're going to see how this works. Next week, we'll get to make fun of ourselves, especially if we do.
And please join us live and make fun of us yourselves. We can make fun of ourselves. You can get in the chat and make fun of us too.
And look, hey, maybe we're so bad that every week you can fade us and you'll make money.
Right.
Or Clay Travis, I think, is the king of that. He's the fade master general if you're looking for somebody. But you guys might live up to his lofty bad pick credentials. We'll see.
We're gonna try, man.
We know Larry's got a lot more data going into the interface on this.
Not yet. It took me a long time to do the sheet, and obviously I didn't do it well enough because I had an error in there. So
yeah, see, I was definitely concerned that Larry was going to spend like all afternoon just punching numbers and figuring out how to make this work, because he's my man. Whenever my man is gambling money, he's serious business. Like there's no joking. And for me, I'm just a dude on the internet. I don't know.
It's not always true. Like I often just bet $10 because it just makes it more fun to watch the game. So
yeah,
like, I'll do that like often, and I don't do much hardcore research. I just want to make it more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing this stuff a little bit more a couple years ago, and I would just throw $5 here, $10 there, just to keep things interesting. But that even then, I found up losing all my money. So I just save it all for emotional head bets now.
All right, we have just debuted our new segment, Larry's Locks vs. Paul's Picks, and we will see how that goes next week and get some feedback and see if you guys hate it or if you like it, and we'll keep doing it for the whole season. All right, we are going to end the show on a true or false. I'm going to make a statement regarding Maryland athletics, and you will have to say true or false and expound upon it if you wish. Jeff, we will start with you. Maryland football has double-digit NFL players on the current roster.
Oh, that's tough. You always want to say yes because you're like, this freshman eventually is going to be this and this is going to be that, and then you don't really factor in how hard it is to make the NFL. But still, I will say yes. You got several guys. Ty Felton's a lock. Some of those guys on defense are locks. It's close, though. It's so hard to do that just because you don't know what the freshmen are going to become. But I'll say true just because they have more talent now than they've had in, quite a while, arguably.
And you got basically 5 drafts of players because you got the red shirts as well. So you need to average just 2 a year.
Yeah, I think Glenn Miller is a lock. Those young tight ends have a great chance. There's a lot of talent.
I think it's true. Okay. Paul, the game this week at Indiana is the most important game of the season.
False, because I think UVA was the most important game of the season. I think if they lost that game, I feel like the whole thing could have unraveled a bit. I feel like you lose this one, it's a tough one, but you're still on the road against a team that looks phenomenal. So I know it's a game you have to win if you're aiming for 7, 8, 9. If you're just talking about being able to to have a season the year after you lose basically your best quarterback of all time and have to recycle your entire offensive line. I mean, if you lose it, it sucks, but I don't think it's a total killer.
You did not watch the series I did with Alf Regent, or you would have called him the 4th best quarterback of all time. Okay.
Who am I to argue with the big man?
Jeff, there is a player on the current basketball roster who will end up in the rafters.
I got to say false just because it's so hard to make it up there. I mean, Melo Trimble's not even up there yet, right? So if he's not up there, and the other thing is now it's even harder to make it because nobody stays more. If you're good enough, you're probably not staying more than 2 years. So, I mean, I can't, they rarely put guys up there. It's pretty exclusive. It's a little wishy-washy on the credentials that are required. They say you have to be a first team or second team All-American. Some guys might not have been, but long story short, Julian Reese is probably the only one with a chance, and he would have to have an amazing senior year, and they'd have to win, do something of note. And then, Derek Queen, just if he's that good, he's not going to be around long enough, most likely. But then again, Steve Francis was only around 1 year, and he's up there, so you never know.
But a lot of it's that team. The team has to win. It's not just you got to be like an All-American, but like you've got to actually win something. And I think, well, we don't need to go down that road.
Paul, your opinion of James Franklin changed after hanging out with Steve Suter 2 weekends ago after our show.
False. All right, my opinion was my existing opinion was simply confirmed in a number of ways. That's all.
Okay.
That's all I'll say.
Fair enough.
Shout out, Steve. Good hang.
Yes, shout out to Steve. That was a lot of fun. There were four of
and
us.
by the way, R.I.P. J.J. Walker, who was a teammate of his and passed away recently, and he had some good stories about him. So that was nice.
We were just buying him drinks, listening, keep going. It was fascinating to me. Anyway,
he had a lot of great stories.
Yes, he did. All right, Jeff. Charlottesville is a great college town. Kind of talked about it already.
True or false? Oh, true. Yeah, it is a great college. It's not up there. I have like a few, Michigan, Ann Arbor, and Boulder, and Cornell was amazing. So it's not on that elite tier, I don't quite think, but it's probably on that next two, second or third level. It's really cool, except for the preppiness is not my thing, and I kind of thought the preppy like polo tucked into this khaki kind of thing. I figured by now that it died. Maybe it just came back because everything from the 80s and 90s is coming back. So it might not be my style necessarily culturally, but it is a pretty cool, really nice looking college town.
Yeah, we only got a few like F Maryland and Maryland sucks. We only got a few of those.
They don't confront you at all there. You can walk there with total impunity and not even
even through the bar zone at 1 or 2 a.m.
We did get some. We did get some. Okay, Paul. It sucks that we're already a third of the way through the season.
First of all, I meant JoJo Walker, not JD Walker. Apologies on that. I'm old. And second of all, yes, it absolutely sucks. We're already a third way through the season.
Yeah.
It happens to me every season. I get so hyped and so excited for college football, and then like you blink and it's like week 5. It's like, what the hell happened? Where did it go? I just want it to be here all the time. Can I just have it every week, like forever in perpetuity?
Yeah.
But we have a longer playoff now to stretch it out a little bit, so that'll be, make it.
It helps, but it's just not quite the same when you have those Saturdays when Maryland's on a bye or away or something. You can just sit there for 12 hours and just get blasted with endless amounts of college football. The remote control is smoking. My wife is writing divorce complaint in the kitchen. The kids have left. There's nothing quite like it, man. It's beautiful.
Well, that's 4 extra Maryland games we're going to get this year with the playoff.
That's true.
Hey, yeah, obviously. I mean, 11-1 still in play. You never know.
Yeah. That's going to be good.
Just like the Washington Commanders, 16-1 still in play. All I'm saying.
They're looking good. I was at the game, at the Bengals game.
I was going to bring that up. I saw a couple of Ermins that had made the trip over to the home of the Bungles to watch that.
That was so fun. And it's always fun when there's nothing better than going on sports road trips with your son. We do that a lot, but he is a huge Commanders fan. So everything that happens, he is fired up. So to see Jaden Daniels look like a superstar. That guy, I know a lot of people watching don't care about the Commanders, but he, I think, could be the best quarterback in the league in a few years. The guy's decision-making is incredible. He is so poised back there. When you add that to his running ability, he is way better than I could have even imagined.
Man, that throw to Terry in the back of the end zone at the end of the game was preposterous. It was just absolutely absurd. And I know it's the NFL and you see guys do that, every once in a while, it's whatever, but man, he looks special. So
he had more touchdowns than incompletions in the game.
That's wild. It's wild. So let us have this moment. I'm sorry we won't bring this up again, but we need to enjoy this while we can.
I too had a game with my son this weekend. It was it's not called White Hart Lane anymore, is it? Is it
No,
just
is it
Tottenham
Spurs Stadium? I don't
whatever?
know. Like,
Yeah, they built that new thing. Yeah, we were in London, so we went and saw Tottenham beat Brentford 3-1, which was very cool.
very nice.
Did Pele play?
He did.
Or Beckham? That was Pele versus Beckham, right?
Yeah, scored
Pele,
Hattie.
He got all 4 goals, 3 for Tottenham and 1 for Brentford.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
he did. Yes, and Landon Donovan and Alex Morgan. I'm trying to think of all the soccer players you might know by name. We're in that game.
Brandy Chastain, is she on?
Wow. Yeah. Yes.
That's a pretty good one.
Of sports bra fame.
Exactly.
Yes. That's the only reason he knows her. That's it. That's fine. We'll take what we can get here.
Yes. All right. Good show, everybody. Thank you, Isaac Bunyun, for coming on the show with us. He was really great. He's @Bunyan_ on Twitter. I should have said that while we were in the middle of the interview with him. But if you want to give him a follow, that's his X account. Sorry, whatever. And if you guys don't mind, please give us a follow and a subscribe and like the video and all that. It's much appreciated. Helps us with our numbers and our stats and all of those things. So we would really appreciate that. We will be back next week, hopefully after a victory over Indiana, and we will see you guys then. This is IMS Radio.